Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you with us today. AI is reshaping the way businesses grow, sometimes as a disruptor, sometimes as a catalyst. Our focus today is how leaders can use it with real purpose. So, the real question is where and how should you apply AI so it fuels meaningful growth for your business, not just more dashboards, but outcomes that truly move the needle? Let me quickly introduce our panel of speakers who bring rich and diverse perspectives to this discussion. Brenda Serino. Brenda is a business and digital transformation leader at TVS Next. She worked with enterprises across industries, helping them align growth ambition with execution on the ground. What makes her perspective unique is the blend she brings: a deep product lens that focuses on building scalable, future-ready solutions, a design thinking approach that starts with empathy and customer experience, and a services mindset that ensures execution is grounded, pragmatic, and value-driven. Today, she'll unpack what the white space really looks like in practice and why it's closing it is so critical for growth. Then we have Steve Zerby. Zeeb has over 3 decades of leadership experience across global organizations, guiding executives on how to translate strategy into measurable outcomes. He brings a pragmatic view on why leaders must pause and assess their readiness before diving into AI investments and how to think about ROI in this journey. And last but definitely not least, Russ Johnson. Russ is the Chief Technology Officer at Crew Car Wash. He is known for driving operational excellence and leading large-scale transformation. Today, he brings the customer's lens to the conversation, sharing how Crew Car Wash partnered with TVS Next to strengthen the foundations and set the stage for AI adoption that truly sticks, while preserving the company's strong culture and values. Together, this panel represents the strategy, the execution, and the real-world application of AI in driving growth. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly let our listeners know our Q&A window is already open, and we invite you to drop your questions or thoughts there as we go. We will try to bring a few of those into the discussion during the Q&A at the end. Brenda, let's start with you. Many leaders know where they want to grow, but struggle when it comes to delivering on that ambition. We call that the white space, the gap between strategy and execution. Can you unpack what this really means in practice and why closing it is so critical for growth?
Thank you, Mark. You're very right. There's a saying where there is no vision, people perish. But we are talking about the times where there is a vision, but organizations still struggle. There is this white space between the vision of the strategy and execution. It's about the what, the when, the how, tying to the why. Most times it's simply because the people on the ground are already busy with daily challenges. They're running hard each day. There are fires to put out, or because the vision hasn't been translated into something tangible for every person in the organization, or the data, process, and collaboration between teams are not in sync. Hence, initiatives start drifting away from the big picture, and slowly that bold vision loses relevance and outcomes are not met. That's when, in spite of the vision, the path between the strategy to the execution remains as the white space. Let me share a quick story to help illustrate some of this. We had an opportunity to work with a large garment manufacturer catering to billion-dollar businesses. The managing director during our discovery workshop said, I want a better oiled business, agile enough to respond to changing fashion trends. Very inspiring, but when we took a close look at it, it almost looked contradictory, but wasn't. Stability on one side, changing fashion trends on the other side. What unfolded was very interesting. Almost instantly, we found everyone who was sincerely taking the MD's vision. They took us to the production floor. Thinking well oiled that's where the problem laid. But when we looked at it closely, the production was already running like clockwork. The real bottleneck was upstream, from the ramp walk to the design to the sampling. They were facing challenges with sourcing delays, pricing blind spots, supply chain rigidity. In other words, leadership very sincerely to the MD's vision rushed to fix what seemingly was the area of focus, not was the underlying area of challenge. This happens everywhere. Sales might chase hyper-personalized deals, production sticks to templatized output. Both make sense in isolation, but together they pull the organization in different directions. In this instance, to truly move the MD's vision, they had to shift from isolated efficiencies to shared goals, like trend to shelf time, design to production agility. And that misalignment in KPI being aligned is where the challenge is. Now, how does AI help, like you started? Traditionally, spotting this kind of misalignments takes months of analysis, interviews, reports, trial and error adjustments. While this white space is an age old problem, we are now in the era of AI, where we can finally solve differently. Look at what is possible now. AI can instantly synthesize conversations like what we are having: audio, video, text, image, name it. Departmental presentations that are made on a weekly basis, monthly basis. Look at the KPIs per persona, market trends, competitor moves. And what it can do is detect the places where the goals are not aligned to the vision, and persona based cross functional goals like design to delivery, sampling success rates in this example can surface. So, Mark, do you see the times that we are in? AI can help right from surfacing the invisible white space, right from strategy state, but can walk the mile not just with the leaders, but with every person in the value chain, keeping cross collaborative KPIs aligned, nudging drifts, and helping keeping the compass of strategy on.
Thank you, Brenda. That was very insightful. Steve, Brenda just described that white space between ambition and execution. You've been in leadership roles for over three decades. Why is it so important for leaders to pause and assess this gap before rushing into AI initiatives?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mark. If you think about it, most organizations set their growth ambitions at the top, and execution layers run down below hard each day. They're just trying to get done what needs to be done in a very large company. So often these top level ambitions and goals can get lost in the day-to-day execution layer, and there's an opportunity cost for that, right? The investments often go into low yield areas. Progress on the larger growth ambitions can become slow and episodic. So without taking a pause and causing alignment and understanding, you get this siloed project effect, duplicate efforts, wasted resources, team lack of focus, and it just all starts to chip away at the real promise of AI. So the promise is really about ensuring that everyone knows what AI means in your company. And it sounds silly, but it's very, very important to create this common lexicon and framework to talk about AI, provide clear examples to bring that framework and language to life, then take the opportunity to provide corporate financial support for AI that's further up this maturity curve and allow some freedom to explore the lower end AI possibilities, but don't really encourage picking up pennies and spending dollars on basic ideas. Force the low level AI to replace cost and spend that's already inside of your company, and reward high level AI ideas with additional funding and requisite governance. And first and foremost, make sure the foundation you're building on is sound. You have to have sound data, you have to have defined processes, and you have to have operational viability. And I think Russ will get into some of that later in the discussion. But this doesn't need to be slow. The structured framework can bring clarity and quick wins that happen in days and weeks and not necessarily have to wait months. But it's absolutely imperative that the leaders establish a framework to identify and guide AI investments, ensuring that these more significant investments are lockstep with the corporate strategy and it's really understood by all. And let's work through a very simple framework and then examples within that framework. Consider inside of our company, we're going to talk about AI in 3 stages. Stage 1 is individual and assisted AI intelligence. Very basic AI, sometimes conversational, perhaps agentic, with a mechanism to analyze and then alert an individual to action. Low cost, short time to read value would be characteristics of what I would call this stage 1. Stage 2, think about it more as augmented AI. In these cases, AI begins to work itself across the functions in a company, across businesses and processes, enabling more real-time integration that maybe traditionally is found in the siloed enterprise. A bit more cost, longer time to value, but really heavily weighted in reward when you get this put in place. Reward in terms of both speed and repeatability. And then finally, in our simplistic model, we'll talk about stage 3 as being the most mature and being autonomous AI. Things and phrases like self-learning, self-governing, decision-capable AI are all characteristics I would expect from this stage. And it's really transformative in that it's changing the traditional organization model in terms of structure and time and cost and who does what. Once you've taught the management and the overall team to think about AI in a model like these 3 stages, assisted, augmented, and autonomous, you can start to provide examples of each, create investment strategies, areas of focus, and reward targets for each. Now, let me explain, maybe by way of example, further this model. In a manufacturing company, whether it be a process or discrete manufacturing company, stage 1 example might be using AI to measure and monitor noise and vibration coming off of some of your manufacturing assets, and then alerting a maintenance tech that there's an issue with an asset. Very basic, but very additive to the performance of that manufacturing facility. Stage 2, when we're talking about augmented AI, it's really about having maybe an AI agent analyze the spare part inventory after that vibration has been detected and trigger a requisition for the parts that need to be ordered and trigger a requisition for the technologist to come repair it. And now, so you see, you're starting to work across from maintenance to procurement to back to maintenance again. And you're having an AI agent do that, a lot more value, a lot more speed, probably more cost and change management. And maybe an example of stage 3, following the same example on the shop floor, is now AI detects that issue. That agent orders a spare part after checking inventory, doesn't just request it, but actually orders it, and actually schedules the technician's time, modifies the production schedule in accordance with all your customer orders, changes the dates that those customer orders are going to be delivered, and then changes all the supply chain considerations in terms of inbound and outbound logistics and materials. And that's very autonomous, and you can see it wiping across the entire company and delivering tremendous value. In this example, you can see how they each become more integrated, more context as you move from left to right is important to the AI model, but the returns are exponentially larger on the right rather than the left of this model. And I'd also argue that the stage 1 work that we talked about and stage 1 work that you might think about inside your own company ought to be funded at immediate cost out of operations, giving the low-level operations a chance to drive it at their pace to the extent that they see the value. They put $1 into AI, they get the $1 out the same day. Their budget is neutral, but now they're starting to transform themselves as an AI function inside of your company. Stage 2 and 3 become more about linking strategy to AI. Create a small group, perhaps, inside your company to allocate from a central money fund to these if they align with the areas of growth or cost reduction that the management team has agreed upon. This is really critical for linking big AI in your company to strategy, and reward those that are in alignment with the corporate strategy with funding, support, governance to advance these sorts of AI ambitions. You can and should make this all fit together. Whether it's within an Inspire session led by Rinda or done internally in your company, you can define AI, create a funding strategy that advances key areas, and expect low-level AI to become the way people think about getting their work done. This all gets done during this pause, And that's, Mark, why the pause matters.
Thank you, Steve. You've talked about the importance of structure and alignment. A big part of that conversation is ROI, which always comes up with AI investments. Steve, how should leaders think about payback periods and what factors really matter when weighing these decisions?
Yeah, and again, I'd go back to our three-stage model and say context matters. ROI depends on what type of an AI initiative we're talking about. Stage one ideas, as I think I said a little bit ago, should be easy to do and easy to see benefit in. I often laugh about, give somebody a conversational AI tool license at 8 in the morning and expect them to be better by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And stage two ideas, as you start to work across the company and work across some of these silos, there's going to be some real cost out, but there's also going to be some real designing of parts of the company that are essential. So I think you're probably, greater than a year. Most of those investments you're going to see an ROI. And the stage three, the truly autonomous AI, perhaps is the model, is the example I gave you inside of a manufacturing facility, going all the way from detecting an issue to fixing it and changing customer orders, et cetera, all kind of in an autonomous manner. It's going to require a lot of confidence in AI to do it correctly, and it's going to have to be repeatable. And, I would think that it's going to be an expensive endeavor for most companies in the short term, but the value tail on that is going to be very, very long and very, very large. So several years of significant value after the implementation. But again, I think the implementation there is probably greater than a year. So those horizons, stage one, immediate, stage two, a year to a year and a half, stage three, probably beyond that. I think those are reasonable expectations. And you should be looking for cost saving, speed, quality improvement, revenue uplift, risk reduction, and ultimately strategic advantage for your company. But the balance here is really key. Foster some of those early stage one things to build enthusiasm while you're working on the longer term bets that really reinforce your company strategy. That's how I think about it, Mark, and that's how I think organizations should plan to think about it in terms of multi-stage return on investment.
Really great insight, Steve. That's a thought I'm going to hold on to and build further. Brenda, building on Steve's point about ROI, many organizations still jump into AI pilots without tying them to outcomes. How do you make sure AI initiatives are truly fit for purpose and not just technology for technology's sake?
Great question, Mark. The truth is, AI is now so widely available. There is a rush to pilot projects just for the sake of experimentation, which is important. But unless those pilots are tied directly to business outcomes, they risk becoming a technological showcase instead of a business accelerator. So the very first step is not the tool, nor the trend, but the anchor of AI in business ambition. Now let's look at this and make it real. Imagine a board mandate that says, double revenue by 2030. Now that's a business goal, but it's a great starting point for shaping AI use cases. Now we could take the advice Steve just said, which is, what is the AI that is fit for your organization? So let's look at one example, which is a HVAC, popularly known as a HVAC manufacturer, wants to achieve this mandate of 2x growth, double the revenue by 2030. Now, if 80% of the revenue comes from OEMs, then for this organization, doubling the revenue was directly proportional to the OEM's demand, which means doubling the production. So what is fit for their purposes if we would put all our time and energy behind looking at how this HVAC manufacturer could look at all the initiatives that are there in the production floor? But that could be quite a lot of investment and may not return, enough for your goal. So where then do we focus? We look at those things, those initiatives in the production floor that will directly impact the OEM and satisfy them. Keep the uptime of your production floor up. for which AI can be employed to ensure that the tool wear and tear can be caught proactively through predictive maintenance. Ensure that the rejects of customers are minimized. Ensure that you reduce the warranty claims. So AI can be employed in anomaly detection using signals from vibration, like Steve gave the example of the manufacturing firm, employing signals from operating conditions, visual inspections, all of this proactively helping us with quality, reducing warranty claims. So if we refer to this, these would fit into the framework of assisted and augmented, as Steve just mentioned. Now, these initiatives are fit for purpose for the HVAC company for the way their growth is driven. If you would take another example of a commodity management firm, their growth, on the contrary, is driven through acquisitions. So while they're vertically deep and strong, their growth at this stage needs to grow horizontal, which is, can the customers who are there in one acquisition be visible to the other so that you can enable cross-sell? But unfortunately, because it is through acquisitions, the systems are different, and we don't have one unified golden record that the organization can gain. Now, if your data is not yet ready, and you will see Russ mention about that, what do? How do you employ AI? AI can be employed here through machine learning, pattern matching algorithms to do exactly that, help you accelerate your data, distill unique records, identify duplicates, reconcile overlaps, causing that single source of truth, unlocking cross-sell and upsell. So this principle for fit for purpose can be simply translated into three things. Alignment, which is every AI pilot must align to the KPIs. Inclusion, like Steve said, let that enthusiasm build. Return on employee. Remember, traditionally it was knowledge in the hands of a select few. But now with AI, you can put intelligence in the hands of all. So when employees are empowered with AI-driven insights and tools, they adopt them. And that leads me to the third. Adoption uncovers a lot of avenues of where really you can employ AI to those impactful outcomes. So you can start with AI curious, you can become AI ready, and you finally become AI driven. So like you can see, Mark, this whole unlocking AI wave needs to be tapped uniquely by each organization with this principle of fit for purpose.
Wonderful, Brenda. Thanks for sharing that. So Brenda just highlighted the key considerations leaders should weigh before pursuing AI. Russ, you've lived this at Crew Car Wash. When you were driving growth, the first priority wasn't AI. It was strengthening the base, strengthening the foundation. How did that focus prepare you for sustainable expansion and now position you to adopt AI even more effectively?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Mark. At Crew, when we were focused on growth, the temptation might have been to just jump straight into AI because it's exciting and full of potential. But what we really learned early on is that you can't build on shaky ground. Our priority was strengthening the foundation, things like modernizing core systems, cleaning up our data, and really creating the right governance structure for technology decisions. That discipline really gave us two big advantages. The first being sustainability and growth. By stabilizing our systems and making data reliable, we reduced the noise in the firefighting. That allowed our teams to focus on strategic initiatives instead of patching problems. The second advantage is then readiness for AI. When you introduce AI into an environment where the data is messy or the processes are unclear, you just get faster, bad decisions. By contrast, when your foundation is solid, AI can actually amplify good decisions. TVS Next actually used their Inspire framework with us to align human-centered design with our business goals and technology. And what came out of that was a clear, concise path towards our readiness. So now, when we look at AI adoption, we're not just experimenting, we're building on top of a already strong, trusted platform. And that really, makes it far easier to adopt AI strategically, safely, and in a way that actually scales. You can't skip the foundation. AI being like fuel, but if the car frame is weak, you're just going to crash faster. Getting the basics right first is what positions you to truly benefit from AI. And, Mark, I feel that kind of connects well with the broader lens you've been framing for us.
Yes, for sure, Russ. So, Russ, you've shown how building the foundation positioned you for AI. But with so many AI products out there, each promising to be the absolute best, how do you decide which ones are the right fit for your business?
That's probably the most common challenge leaders face right now. There are so many AI products claiming to be the best, and you can't chase them all. You'll end up with a patchwork of shiny tools that don't really move the business forward. At Crew, we focus on three filters when we're evaluating AI solutions. The first being business alignment first. We don't start with the tech. We start with the business outcome. What are we trying to accomplish here? Does this AI tool solve a real problem or unlock measurable value for our team members and customers? If it's just cool technology without a clear use case, we pass. The second, with data and security being extremely important, AI only works if the underlying data is secure and well governed. So we assess how the product handles sensitive information, whether it integrates with our existing data platforms, and does it respect the compliance standards like PCI or SOC 2? Third, being scalability and fit. We're not just looking for quick wins. We're looking for solutions we can grow with. That means testing how well the AI integrates with our core platforms. Does it have open APIs? And do they have a roadmap that we can actually trust? So maybe rather than which AI is best, we ask, which AI best fits our business model, our data strategy, and our growth plans? That shift in mindset keeps us focused and avoids the trap of sort of chasing hype. The key to finding the best AI isn't finding the right. It's in finding the right AI for your business. The wrong fit, no matter how advanced, just creates complexity. The right fit actually amplifies your strategy. So Mark, on that, let me hand it back to you to take it further.
Thanks so much, Russ, for sharing that journey with us. So Russ gave us the leadership view of making tough technology choices. Brenda, stepping back a bit, when we talk about unlocking AI for growth, what does that really mean in practice? And how does Inspire help organizations actually close that gap between ambition and execution?
So here's the thing, Mark. If you take a careful look at what Ross just shared, unlocking AI is successful when we take a methodical, thoughtful approach in our own organization, keeping business alignment as the compass, the fit-for-purpose initiatives as the radar, and unlocking AI in the places that rightly amplifies and accelerates the business and its people. So if I would summarize that in one line, the real question is, how composable are you as a business? That's exactly what the Inspire framework helps business uncover, tap, and elevate. It is designed to help businesses decompose themselves in a manner that is unique to their goals and then handholds them in making their ambition a reality. Hidden behind the workings of each business is its unique DNA, which we should never dismiss. The people, the process, the data, and the existing investments. Inspire brings these different threads in the fabric of an organization together in a structured and personalized manner into one composable business architecture. And on top of that, it highlights the area where AI can be unlocked to create either differentiation, acceleration, or even disruption. Now, composability, what is that? It can happen at different levels. At the data level, if your data is composable, AI can accelerate you by delivering actionable insights, spotting trends, reducing anomalies. If you look at the example we just had shared earlier about the HVAC manufacturer, you saw how the fit-for-purpose initiatives are zeroed down into the production floor and into the area of quality and uptime. And you saw how the AI initiatives were zeroed down into anomaly detection and predictive maintenance, bringing those outcomes. This is data at a quality station. This is data about a certain machine. So there is data available and you're effective to get that goal. Now take that a little further. At the process level, Composable process let AI elevate routine work into decision flows. Now you're no longer workflows, you're decision flows. And this, take an example of an insurance company, claim processing. You want faster payouts. Excellent examples. People looking at emails, scanning documents, looking at compliance to policy, rules, which is the desk approval needs to go to. Perfect use case. This can lay the ground rule for agentic and slowly start setting the base for autonomous. Now let's take it to another level. You are at a business segment level. If you would relate to the example that I just mentioned earlier about the commodity management business, you saw how cross-sell can be enabled when two business segments are able to share the data, interconnect with the workflow. Suddenly, market events, corporate events, life events start becoming interconnected. Buy and sell is possible. Now, if you go to the topmost level, which is the next, which is business, remember the use case of the garment manufacturer? What he was asking for was beyond the business. It was looking at what was the market sensing, how is the market shifting, what is the changing fashion trends. All of that can feed back over here and look at the scenario of reducing that design to sampling time. So in summary, if you would decompose your business into all of these, this white space between strategy to execution, AI can be such a great enabler that can bridge it right from the discovery stage into the stage of execution. As Steve and Russ shared through the real world examples, it's essential to pause and reflect, understand it, decompose it, and get your composable business architecture. So now I'm going to leave you with a thought. AI will work its magic to the extent that your business is composable. Where are you in this journey? And how composable are you? Are you at the assistant stage? Are you ready to employ augmented? Are you ready to put both of us together and charter to autonomous wherever necessary? That's what I would say, Mark.
Thank you so much, Brenda. This has been an incredible conversation. We've gone from strategy to execution, and we've heard from leaders who've shown the value of pausing, reflecting, and enabling their organization to keep pace with change. As we bring this session closer to a close, I see we have a few final questions for our panel. Asha, can you help us take up a few questions now, and then we'll follow up on the other ones as well over time if we can't go through all of them.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, we have a couple of questions. The first question is to you, Steve. Many leaders struggle with where to begin. If an organization hasn't done much with AI yet, what's one low-risk first step they could take tomorrow? Steve, you're on mute.
Yeah, good question. I often, when I try to get started, think about human behavior a little bit, and people like to compete and people like to be recognized within a company. So something right off the top of my mind would be something as simple as sponsor an AI challenge to your associates. Who can think of the best use case for conversational AI in our company? And then use that to discover what's already getting done in the shadows, right? Because they'll bring some of that out. And then also use it as a way to teach, right? Frame the best ideas as winners that consider legal implications, financial implications, operational implications, security implications, intellectual property concerns. So, as you're running this competition, you're grading against the criterion and you're teaching the organization what those important elements are. And, at the end of the day, you have a winner, you have a good idea of a lot of the things that are going on in your company, you build some enthusiasm. And then I think from that point, it's a pretty nice, easy jump into some sort of a more formal framework. But that would be something I think would be really easy to do, just a lot of communications work and see what's already going on, because I think any of us know that have been inside of technology in a big enterprise is there's a lot of shadow work that goes on, and often we're motivated to stop it. And in this case, I think you can be motivated to lever it, to actually create enthusiasm and start to teach inside the company. That would be an idea, Asha.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Russ, the second question is for you. You mentioned culture earlier. How do you make sure new technology fits into the way your teams already work without overwhelming them?
Yeah, it's a really important question because technology is it's never a guaranteed success, right? It's how people use it that makes the difference. For us, we try to focus on meeting people where they already work. Instead of forcing teams to adopt completely new tools or processes, we try to integrate new technology into systems and workflows they're already comfortable with, really. So, example, if they live in ServiceNow or Teams, we make sure the new solution surfaces there. We also take a crawl, walk, run approach. We start with small pilots, build quick wins, as was discussed on this chat as well, and invite feedback. That way, employees don't feel overwhelmed. They feel like co-creators. And I guess most importantly, we frame technology changes in terms of how it helps them, what's in it for them. Saving time, is it removing friction, really making their jobs easier. So when people see the benefit of that, adoption isn't necessarily forced, it becomes more natural.
Awesome. So co-creation is the key. Thanks, Russ. Brunda, here is a question for you. Given your experience, what are the challenges that you have seen in scaling AI at enterprise level? There is also one more follow-up question to this. When you look at AI pilots, where do you see them fail most often, and what's the fix?
Interesting. Been there a couple of times. So Asha, the question I would ask is, did your pilot get adopted? Did it achieve the necessary outcomes? Did it help make life easier? How? Are there ambassadors to this? That is very important. Sometimes we just overlook adoption and we overlook change management. Very important. But if we could get a yes to it and we could get some answers to that, then we have to ensure that these AI projects are just not something fun alone. Well, that is good, but they are tied to these real business outcomes, like you heard everyone say. That is one. And then the poor data readiness. If you're not data ready, it's just in silos that you're ready, but not across the enterprise, then there's a problem. So investing in that, like Ross mentioned in their example, shaky foundations, it's not good. So investing in that is important. And sometimes ensuring that the skill gaps can be bridged quickly between both technical and business, because the fine line between that is now, getting closer. Trust and governance issues is another concern I've often heard. It's a concern around fairness, concern around compliance, or some things that must be educated, must be addressed. And those models that work smoothly on pilot, how does it work on production? So this operationalization is very important. If you speak to the tech leader, you will hear quite a lot about MLOps. So these are few things, Asha, that would be very important to consider while you consider scale. And you have that in mind even while you're doing the pilot to some extent. Now, coming to your question on why AI pilots often fail and how to fix them. They often fail because they're built in isolation, sometimes too technical, very limited inputs from business stakeholders. They may work in theory, but lack relevance in the real flows. So there's no path to scale or integration, and then becomes not outcome-led. There's a lack of clear success metrics. There's poor adoption due to ignoring end users. The fix, Asha, is to design with the end user in mind. Russ mentioned about human-centered design. We can never discount that. End user in mind, the employees, the customers, the partners, everyone. Involve cross-functional teams early on. Focus on deployment from day one. So a successful pilot isn't just about performance metrics. It's about usability, adoption, and business impact. Hope that helps, Asha.
Yeah, lovely, Brunda. Again, summarizing, co-create, adoption by the audience, and doing it together. Sounds really great. I hope the audience got their answers. We still have a lot of questions, but since we are at most at top of the hour, Mark, can you please take this to closing? We'll respond to all your questions in written format along with the webinar replay link, and there also will be a survey link along with that. We request all of you to respond to that. And yeah, over to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Asha. Those were some exceptional questions and some great responses from our panelists. So before we conclude, I'd like to take some last thoughts from our panelists. Over to Steve first. So Steve, we've covered frameworks, ROI, some real world stories today. If you could leave leaders with one last piece of advice as they think about AI adoption and growth, what would it be?
Thanks, Mark. I think my answer will be in 3 or 4 parts. One would be put structure around the AI chaos and noise, but at the same time, let small, interesting things happen along the way. Sometimes from small things, big things come. And so govern, but do so maybe with a light hand. Take the pause, define the framework we talked about, repeat it 1,000 times until people understand it. Use storytelling and use it to help operationalize your company. Embrace stage 1 to 3 initiatives, as we said before. Really focus additional funding, seed funding on those bigger stage 2 and 3 ideas that transform the business and link very strongly to your corporate strategy. Excuse me. And remember, the success here is going to be measured to the extent that strategy, people, process, and technology all are in sync, but not bound so tightly that they feel overgoverned and constricted. So 3 or 4 points there, but I think they're all important, Mark.
Thank you, Steve. So Russ, let me come to you for the last word. What's just one takeaway from your journey that other leaders here should apply within their own organizations?
I appreciate that, Mark. If I had one takeaway, it would be this. Don't treat AI as a destination. Treat it as an accelerator. At Crew, our journey wasn't about chasing the latest technology first. It's about getting the fundamentals right, building strong systems, cleaning up our data, creating a culture that embraces change. That foundation is what allowed us to move into AI with confidence, knowing it would actually deliver some value rather than just noise. For other leaders, the lesson is fairly simple as well. It's focus on the basics first. I think you've heard that a lot here today, and it really is true. Align your teams, clarify your processes, and just get your data house in order. If you do that, AI won't feel like a risky experiment. It'll feel more like a natural next step that amplifies everything you've already built.
Perfect, Russ. This has been such a great session. I would like to thank our panelists for their thoughtful leadership and all their pragmatic viewpoints on addressing the questions that our audience is faced with every single day as they work within their enterprises. Also, thank you for being such a wonderful audience today. Thanks to everyone who shared questions and comments. Always great to hear those perspectives. And as we wrap up, let me bring us back to the bigger picture. We've covered a lot of ground, from the white space that often slows organizations down, to why leaders need to pause and plan, to real-world choices about where AI fits, and finally, how frameworks like Inspire can tailor AI to different growth ambitions. And what we've shared today is just the beginning. We'll continue bringing more stories, practical playbooks, and deeper conversations. Because unlocking AI for growth isn't a one-time initiative, it's a journey, and we'd love to continue that journey with you. We'll be sharing a recording of today's incredible webinar, along with a short survey. We look forward to staying connected. Till we meet again, goodbye and have a great rest of your day.